Begin Daf Dalet in Masechtas Beruchas, 8 lines down from the top of the Amud, where we quickly review what we spoke about in the previous Daf. We mentioned the opening halacha of our Mishnah of the Masechta, where we say Kriyishma in the evening. One of the opinions up until when one could say Kriyishma in the evening was Rabbi Eliezer, who says Ad Seifa Shmur Rishayna, until the end of the first watch, which we spoke about that Rabbi Eliezer is of the opinion that there's 3 different groups that the night is divided into, both in heaven and on earth. And we spoke about the different signs that there are during the night and 2 different interpretations when they are. Is it the end of the Mishmairis, or is it the end of the first one, the middle one, and the beginning of the last one? We also spoke about these are auspicious times, man mesugel for tefillah, either at the end of the Mishmairis or, as is commonly known from the Mekabalim, by Tikkin Chatzais, like David in the middle of the night got up to sing praises to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We spoke about the famous story with Eliyahu Navi and Rabbi Yesi and the idea of Amen Yehesh Mirabah. Then the Gemara, once it introduced the idea of the story that spoke about a churba, spoke about 3 reasons why you're not allowed to go into a churba, into a dilapidated building. Either because chashad, the suspicion that the person might engage with a zayna, that people might say that and suspect him, mapailis, that the building might collapse, or because mazikin, because of dangerous, harmful forces that there are in a dilapidated building. And we spoke about that they're all exclusive reasonings. You could have each one that you only have one of those reasons, and therefore the Bryce had to say that there are 3 reasons why it's forbidden to go into a churba. We also had a machlekes regarding is the night divided into 3 mishmairis or into a 4 mishmairis, and the sources for the halacha. Also, parenthetically, the Gemara brought in that it's prohibited to talk in front of a dead person, and the Gemara discussed exactly what's included, is that only divrei Torah or even divrei Torah is forbidden. We spoke about the question that did David Melech get up in the beginning of the night, like one pasuk seems to infer, mehaneshef, or was it by midnight? And we had 3 different answers. Either, yes, he got up in the beginning of the night, but midnight did not pass him by, like Ovar Halayla, or it was 2 different parts. He got up in the beginning of the night, but it was misnamnim kisus. He was like dozing off like a horse, and then at midnight he got up mighty like a lion. So both are true. Or the 3rd interpretation was, yes, in the beginning of the night he got up to learn Torah. Midnight, like the pasuk says, Akim lahaydis lachay, got up to say shiur v'sishbachas. Those are 3 answers for that question. And finally, we spoke about, which is where our daf is going to continue, the question: how did David HaMelech know when midnight was? Which he says he got up at midnight, and Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know. And how do we know Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know? Because it's kachatzais. He wasn't sure, like around midnight. So the first answer we brought, which was on the previous stuff, was David HaMelech didn't know. There was a keener, there was a harp that blew, that the northern wind came and blew and started playing the harp, and therefore he woke up. And parenthetically, the Gemara got into a discussion when he would wake up at midnight, what he would start doing. He would learn Torah, then they came to him and said, okay, what should we do about, we have no parnasa, and then he would say to wage war, and then the Gemara discussed what's the order of that war they would do. They had 4 different stages they went through. First discuss strategies of war, then consulting with the Sanhedrin, and then with the Umm Tumim, and then actually getting to the general. And with that we would continue, again, like we said, 8 lines down from the top of the Amud, where the Gemara quotes as follows, giving another interpretation for the question we asked. Rabbi Zeir he says, it's not true. Moshe Rabbeinu knew when midnight was, but David Name Haviyad, and therefore we're not back to we don't have the question that what did David HaMelech know and Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know. Moshe Rabbeinu knew, and David HaMelech knew. Now, it says the Gemara, so keeping the David Haviyada, so if David HaMelech knew when midnight was, okay, that's how he knew how to get up at midnight, so Kiner Lamale. Why did he need the harp? According to the first answer, the Gemara, he didn't know, and the harp was there to tell him when it's midnight. Now you're telling me David HaMelech knew, Moshe Rabbeinu knew. What was the purpose of the harp? L'saruri mishanase, simply to wake him up. It was his alarm clock, but he knew when midnight was. Oh, so wait a second, ask the Gemara, but keeping the Moshe Haviyada, since Moshe Rabbeinu knew when midnight was, the whole question of the Gemara was based on Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know. He says, around midnight. You know, and that's how David could know also, because it seems like from the Gemara he doesn't know more than Moshe Rabbeinu in that sense. So why say around midnight? Say Bachatzais, which Hashem for sure told him also at midnight. Says the Gemara, Moshe thought, yeah, I know. B'Shem Yitu Itzdagnine Parai, the astrologers of Parai, they might make a mistake. He says that I know, they don't know. And it's what's going to happen is he was concerned that before midnight, they're going to think, oh, it's already midnight. Guess what? The firstborns are not dying. V'yomer, they're going to say, Moshe Badayahu, Moshe is a liar. So it's better to say something like, I don't know, than say something that people might think that you're lying. As the Gemara brings the Amar, like the Master says in Masechtas Derech Eretz, Lamoid l'shayin chalomer en yedeh. Get your tongue used to saying, I don't know. Because what might happen is you might lie, and you're going to be stuck and stumbled in your words. So although Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't even lying, But it's still better to say, I don't know, because what might happen is they might think you're lying. And then they're going to say you're a liar, and he didn't want them to make that mistake. That's why he said, kechatzos, around midnight. So therefore, it doesn't have to be exactly at the moment of midnight. That's why he said it. But really, he knew, and David HaMelech also knew. Rav Ashi, he brings a third interpretation to answer the question, why did Moshe Rabbeinu say kachatzais if he really knew when midnight is? Because David knew when midnight was. Says the Gemara, bepalga urta detleser. Palga means half. Urta means of nighttime. Detlesa of the 13th. Halfway through the night of the 13th, meaning after the 13th day, nighi arbeisa, which is in the morning of the 14th, meaning the night after the 13th, when it's already going halachically ready into the 14th day, essentially the day before Pesach, the day before they got redeemed, that's when Moshe Rabbeinu was saying this statement of kachatzos. Now, v'hachi kama Moshe Yisrael, it's a reinterpretation of the word kachatzos. Up until now, we were reading kachatzos like midnight, meaning around midnight. No, that's not what kachatzos means. V'hachi kama Moshe Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu saying to the Jewish people was, Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu said, L'machar, tomorrow, kachatzos halayla ki iha idna. Like tonight at midnight, the same thing tomorrow, Ani yoytze b'teich Mitzrayim, I'm going into Egypt. So ka could be read as, around, or like. Meaning, just like now, it's chatzos, ka chatzos, the same chatzos now, like that, tomorrow, bachatzos. So again, we were reading up until now ka chatzos, like around, because it doesn't say bachatzos. No, he said ka chatzos to say, just like now, it's midnight, so too tomorrow night, on the 15th of Nisan, which is when Gulas Mitzrayim is going to happen, at midnight, they're going to die. So therefore, again, that's the third interpretation, as we brought for the two more questions that we had mentioned. The Gemara asked, David Yada, Moshe lo Yada? First answer, we said, no, David knew. The kina was to wake him up. Moshe was just concerned for the mistake of the Egyptians. And the second answer is that, which is the third answer from the previous daf, is kachatzais doesn't mean around. It means the same thing. It's the night before Pesach, the same exact thing. Kachatzais, the same thing. Tomorrow night is going to be the same thing. Now, the Gemara introduces a discussion that will relate back directly to a previous Gemara we mentioned. Gemara quotes a pasuk in Tehillim, Le David, for David, which is many mizmorim start with that word, like he's saying a song for himself. Shamra nafshi, my soul should be protected. Ki chasid ani, because I'm a devout person. I'm a chasid, I'm a pious person. So the Gemara brings Levi v'Rabbi Yitzchak, two Amiram. Chadama one says, Kach amar David lefnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This is what David HaMelech was saying in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rabbi Shloimo, master of the world, Loi chasid ani, am I not a pious person? Shekol malchi mizrach ma'ariv. All the kings of the east and the west, Yishein vat shalish shayis, they sleep until 3 hours in the day. Now you know why the Gemara is bringing this in. The previous daf, we mentioned this idea. One of the interpretations was saying Ashmurais is, although there's only 6 hours left to the night, how can you say Ashmurais if we got up at midnight? We said there was 2 hours of the day when the kings sleep late. So the Gemara referenced that, so the Gemara is bringing that idea back over here, which is David HaMelech saying, am I not a pious person? All the kings of the world, they sleep late, 3 hours into the day. Vani and me, as we had the pasuk and tell him from the previous daf, I get up at midnight to go and give thanks to you. Hashem, I'm a chassid. That's one interpretation. Vidach, the other opinion says, no, this is what David was saying in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Rabbi Shloimo, master of the world, Loi chasarani, I'm not a pious person. All the kings of the east and the west, which means from the whole world, they're sitting groups and groups in their honor. They're sitting with pomp and celebration for their own honor. Vani, and you know what I am, the king of the Jewish people? Yadi melochlachas badam. My hands are soiled with blood, meaning the women would show him what's called maras. They would show him different colors of blood, of menstrual blood. Is it tummy or is it tar? Because although we assume every menstrual blood is tummy, it's actually not the case. There are some colors of women's blood that is tar, and some are tummy. So they would show it to him to see which ones are the tummy and which ones are the tar. Additionally, ubishvir. His hands were soiled with the embryo. The embryo is the skin of the child, that the bones and the tendons and the flesh are formed inside this skin. And there are certain embryos that the woman would require if she has this, if she gives birth to this embryo, that she's going to have what's called yomei tumah v'tahara, or yoledis. A woman gives birth, has to be tummy for a certain amount of days, and then she has days of purity, which that's what's called merukim. If it was a formed fetus, the Gemara says in Masechtas Nida, Daf Chaf Amud Aleph, that there are certain what's called these embryos that are filled with water and blood. That's not considered a child. that doesn't have halacha of tumas yiledus and yomei tahara. But if it's a fully formed fetus, then that on that embryo, that a woman's going to have to sit yomei tumah mitara. So they would bring in front of him, they would show him this let's say aborted embryo to see is it a fully formed one or not, to see if there's tumah mitara. So to ubishilya, what's a shilya? Shilya is an afterbirth. That's actually, as the Mishnah says over there, Masechtas Nidam, it's like the sack that the child is in. What we just said of the shvir is the actual child itself. It's like the skin of our body. Then there's the shilya, which is the sack. There's the amniotic sac that the baby is born in. And the Mishnah over there teaches there is no shilya, there's no sack without a child inside of it. So if it's a real shilya, you know for sure that there's a yomei tumah mitahara. The only thing is, a brayso over there teaches that a shilya has a minimum measurement that it has to be. It can't be less than a tafach. It starts off like a weft thread, and the end of it is like a lupine beam. So they would bring in front of him to see, does it have the measurement? Was it made according to it? Did it come out of the woman's body according to the measurement of a shilya, that we should assume that there was a child inside of it? And although we don't see a child, the child obviously dissolved, and therefore the woman has to sit days of tumah and tahara, or not? And says David, according to this interpretation, he says, so these women are bringing me all these different blood and embryos and afterbirth. Why? To purify a woman for her husband, which this is important. I got shimush in Maris, and what this Gemara actually tells us is that the objective of the Rav on some level is to be matar ish labala. You see David HaMelech saying this words himself, which is obviously according to the halacha, but that's his objective, because if not, you're in the situation of doubt. Because of the doubt, she's going to be tummy. But he goes through the sugya and says, this is what I'm doing all day. Am I not a pious person? They're celebrating themselves, and what am I doing? I'm busy with these maras, all these different things to purify the women. Not only that, whatever I do, I consult with my Rabbi Mephibosheth. And I tell him, Mephibosheth Rabbi, my Rabbi Mephibosheth, Yafadanti, did I judge correctly? Yafachiyafti, did I make the person liable correctly? Yafazachisi, did I make the person exempt appropriately? Where these terminologies, Zachisi and Chayafti, that would be applicable, let's say, by monetary law, by capital punishment. Yafa Taharti, did I make it pure appropriately? Yafa Tamesi, did I make it tummy appropriately? With these terminologies of Tamantara appropriate by halachas of Tamantara. V'loy Baishti, and I wasn't embarrassed. So therefore, that's like we wrote down over here, when David HaMelech says Chassid Ani, he was saying, I'm not like other kings. Those kings either wake up late, I get up at midnight, or they're celebrating themselves with their own honor in their own castles and everything there, and my hands are malachleches pedam. Now, which takes us into the next thing, where he also says, I'm not embarrassed. I'm not afraid to be vulnerable, and I asked my Rebbe, did I do the right thing or not? And the Gemara actually comments, Amr b'shubarei Davidi, he says, Mikra, what's a pasuk that alludes to what the interpretations in Chassid Ani is? The pasuk in Tehillim says, V'adabra be'edeisecha neged melachim. It says, I speak in your statutes in face of the kings. V'lo yevish, I'm not embarrassed. So you see, David HaMelech wasn't afraid to go ahead and talk in Torah and deal with Torah, even though the kings are celebrating their pomp, and also that he wasn't embarrassed to go ahead and be vulnerable and say, did I do the right thing, did I not, in regards to judging in the halacha that he judged. Now, Tana, the Gemara brings a brayso that says, Lo Mephibosheth Shema. His Rebbe actually was not called Mephibosheth. Ele Ishbosheth Shema. His name was Ishbosheth, which the commentators discuss. It seems like a son of Shaul, whatever. They're not exactly clear who this individual is, but that was his Rebbe. Now, but why was he called, if his name was really Ishbosheth, why was he called Mephibosheth? Because he embarrassed the face of David when it came to halacha. The word Mephibosheth is mifi, from my mouth, is baishis, is embarrassment. Meaning, when David HaMelech would say a dvar halacha, then his Rebbe would then correct him, and that mifi, from my mouth, this individual mifi baishis, was baishis to David HaMelech, because sometimes David HaMelech made a mistake, and he would say, you know what, you made a mistake. Now, it says the Gemara, interestingly, lefikach, therefore, because of the merit that David HaMelech made himself small, he was not afraid of being humbled. Zacha David v'yatza mimenu Kilov. His son, he merited a son called Kilov. Now, Amr B'yechan, he says, Loi Kilov Shemai. This son actually, his name was not Kilov. Ela Daniel Shemai. His name was Daniel. Now, interestingly, there's actually two contradictory psukim. There's a pasuk in Shmuel Beis that says, Umishneyu, that his second son of David, his name was Kilov, who was born to Abigail, the wife of Naval. Another place says that his second son was Daniel, which was born to Abigail as is born in Divrei Yamin. So therefore, our Gemara is alluding to that contradiction and saying yes, because he was actually the same individual. His name was not Kilov. Although it's recorded as Kilov, his name was actually Daniel. Oh, so says the Gemara, Kilov. Then why was he called Kilov? because he embarrassed his father's Rebbe in halacha, not openly embarrassing him, but meaning when he would speak in conversation of halacha, he would embarrass his father's Rebbe. That's the name kil of. Kil of is from the word machlim, to embarrass, has the word kal, and av is the father in rulings. So therefore, as we wrote down over here, David HaMelech, his Rebbe was Mifi Baishas, Pi Baishas. His mouth embarrassed David, and in the merit that David HaMelech wasn't afraid of being embarrassed and being corrected, he merited a son that was kil of, that embarrassed the father of all the rulings, which was his own Rebbe. And he merited that because of his humility. And says the Gemara, and regarding this that we just mentioned, Shloimo, which was a different son of David, mentioned in his wisdom at Pasuk in Mishlei. The Pasuk says, B'ni, my son, im chacham libcha, if your heart is wise, yisamach libi gam ani, my heart will also rejoice. Again, saying the same idea regarding his own son. His son was smart, so David HaMelech was also rejoicing that he bested his own Rebbe. Vayman, like it says in the Pasuk in Mishlei, Chacham b'ni, my son, you're wise, v'samach libi, and my heart rejoices, v'shiva charifri David, and I'll be able to respond to those who disgrace me something, meaning his own son was besting his own Rebbe who embarrassed him. Now, the Gemara asks, again, we introduced the previous Gemara's discussion because it's related to the previous stuff, but again, as the Gemara many times does in that tangential way, now it asks on that. The David Mikar le'nafshi chassid, David HaMelech called himself a pious person? And we had two different interpretations why he considers him a chassid, but he considers him a chassid. But the pasuk says in Tehillim, David HaMelech says, a famous pasuk, we're saying, David Hashem Ayri, Lule Hamanti. If I didn't believe, Lirois betul Hashem, to see in the good of God, Be'eretz Chaim, in the land of the living, which means to say to be in Eretz Yisrael, then I would have already been chased away from my fear of you. Because there's a pasuk that David HaMelech says in Shmuel Aleph, he says, I was chased away today from being in the ancestral place of Hashem, which I was, so to speak, said, don't come into Eretz Yisrael. It's a different story brought somewhere else. But he says, had I not trusted, I would have thought I would never have made it to Eretz Chaim. Now, B'tana Mishmei Rabbi Yasi, there's a brayso that was taught in the name of Rabbi Yasi. Lama nakud alule. Sometimes we find in the Torah that there are certain words that have dots on it. So the same thing here is in this pasuk in Tehillim, the word lule has dots on it. Now the objective, the purpose of dots is it expounds the dots. It's as if that word wasn't there in the pasuk. That's the objective of the dots. To say that lule means to say, the word lule means to say, if not that I had this trust, I would have then totally been demolished. Now, that sounds like that he did trust. But the dots on the lule makes it sound like he wasn't so confident. It wasn't lule hamanti. It was like, it wasn't that as if he did. He actually didn't, so to speak, trust. Why? David said in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, B'nai master of the world, Muftach ani bach, I'm confident in you, God. I know that you give good reward to the righteous in the world to come. And that's what the pasuk is saying. Liris betuv Hashem be'eretz chaim, which in this context is referring to Olam Haba. I don't know if I have a portion of them or not. So therefore the word lule had dots on it, because lule, that word is telling us, had I not, because I really did. But it sounds like that the dots are taking that away. As if, no, he doesn't even know that he's going to be in the next world. Why? Because I don't know if I'm going to have a portion. You're calling yourself a chassid. You're not even a tzaddik, you're a chassid. So obviously you're going to go to the next world. And here he's saying that he's not. So how do we understand the contradiction? Does he consider himself a chassid? Or is he saying that I don't even know if I'm going to get to the next world? Says the Gemara, the answer is Shemi Yigrem Hachet. That is, you're right. He knew that he was a pious person. But still he was in doubt if he's going to be, like the pasuk says, Liris Betuv Hashem Be'eretz Chaim. He wasn't sure if he's going to get to the next world. Why? Because he was afraid that maybe the sin was going to cause that he's not going to go ahead and see in the good. He was pious, but sin could make you lose a status. He was afraid of losing that status of being the chassid, of getting to the next world. And the Gemara proves this point. The Rabbi Yaakov Baridi Rami, he posed the following contradiction in a different story. There's a pasuk in Bereshis that says regarding Yaakov Avinu, Hashem tells Yaakov, V'hine, anoichi imcha. Behold, Hashem says to Yaakov, I'm with you. Ushmarticha b'chal hashateich. I'm going to protect you wherever you go. So that's pretty confident, right? Yet there's another pasuk that says, V'yiri Yaakov ma'oid. Yaakov was very afraid. You're afraid? God promised you. What's your concern? Amar, because Yaakov Avinu said, Shema yigrem hachet. Maybe the sin is going to cause. V'yiri Yaakov was that maybe after the guarantee, maybe I'm going to sin. Kedetani, like in the Brisa, we actually find such a precedent in history that a sin caused that the guarantee did not come through. Where do we find this? It's a pasuk in Shemais we know famously from Az Yasha. The pasuk starts off over there where God promises that the Jewish people will instill fear in all their enemies. When God picks up his arms, they're all going to be silent like stone. And it says a repetition, a redundancy. It says, Ad Yavar Amcha Hashem, until your people Hashem pass through, which is like referring when they pass over the water. Ad Yavar, until they pass, Amzu Kanisa, this nation that you acquired. What's the redundancy? So the Gemara Darshans, you know what the redundancy is? It's told about 2 times in history when the Jewish people are going into Eretz Yisrael. Ad Yavar Amcha Hashem, until your people pass by Hashem, Zubi Rishayna. That was the first time they came into Eretz Yisrael. When was that? In the days of Yeshua ben Nun, when they finally came into Eretz Yisrael. And then Ad Yavar Amzu Kanisa, until they pass over this nation that you acquired, Zubi Yishnia. This is the second time they came into Eretz Yisrael. When was that? After Chorban Bayis Rishon, they went into Galus Bavel. And then, in the days of Ezra, they came up to Eretz Yisrael, where interesting way to remember this is Melech Eizer Mashiach. Eizer is Ezra, Mashiach is Yeshua ben Nun. Right? That's when the 2 times they came into Eretz Yisrael, which was in the days of Ezra and Yeshua ben Nun. Now, there's an interesting difference. It sounds like by both of them, we're supposed to be the same way. When the Jewish people passed by the waters, Yam Suf, the Yarden, going to Eretz Yisrael, both in the days of Yeshua and Ezra should be the same thing. But Mekana Chacham, from here the sages say, Ru'uyim ha Yisrael la'asas lehem nes b'mei Ezra. The Jewish people were fit that there should have been a miracle in the days of Ezra, the second time coming to Eretz Yisrael, which was, like the pasuk says, Biyad Ramah, the Jewish people coming with an uplifted arm, Kederach shenas lehem b'mei Yeshua ben Nun, like it was done in the days of Yeshua ben Nun. But it wasn't. El Shagarm Hachet. The sin caused, what ended up happening, the Gemara Megillah discusses, they only went with the permission of Kairosh, who is the Persian ruler. And all the days that the Persians ruled, they were subjugated to Kairosh, to Achashverosh, to the later Daryavish. That's in the Achashverosh story. That was when they were going back up to Eretz Yisrael. They stopped before, and then after Achashverosh, then they let it. But ultimately, they didn't get to go Biyad Rama. Why not? It's part of the pasuk, Ad Yavar Amcha Hashem Amzu Kanisa. The reason is because Yigr Machet, the sin caused. So therefore, like we wrote over here, that David HaMelech said, yeah, I'm a chassid, but I don't know if I'm going to make it to the next world. Shemi Yigr Machet. And Yaakov was concerned with the same thing. So although God guaranteed him, he was afraid. And actually we find in the days of Ezra that actually happened. That they actually did not get the same Yad Ramah because of sin that caused it. Now we continue going back to the halach of our Mishnah. Up until now we quoted the first opinion, that of Rabbi Eliezer. We had a 3-way machlokes up until one could say Kriya Shema at nighttime. Either until the end of the first watch, which was 4 hours into the night, or, as our Gemara is going to quote now, V'chachamim ad chatzais, the sages say up until midnight, or we had Rabbi Gamliel who said, Adalei Sashacha, until the break of dawn, you could go ahead and say Kriya Shema the whole night. Now says the Gemara, Chacham kaman svirulu. Who exactly do the sages hold like? Now, what's exactly the question? As we explained previously, where do we know the obligation of Kriya Shema by nighttime? We know it because it says, Uvishach b'chav komecha. It says, V'haya advar ma'ela. These are the words, V'shanantam v'necha. You should say these words. B'shach b'chav komecha. That's how we know the evening Kriya Shema, when you lay down at nighttime. Now, when it says V'shach b'chav, what exactly does that mean? There's basically 2 interpretations that the Gemara wonders, where did the Chacham's opinion come up? And that is, Ikar Rabbi Eliezer Svirulei, if they hold like Rabbi Eliezer, that he holds, B'shach b'chav means, as long as people are going to sleep. Some go a little earlier, some go a little later. But if that's how he holds, so Leimu Rabbi Eliezer, let the Chacham say like Rabbi Eliezer, that he says up until the end of the first part of the night, because most definitely, like which is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, most people go to sleep by that time and they're already sleeping. Again, this is in the context, in the global understanding and definition of sleeping. A lot of things have changed in recent times about people's sleep patterns, but in general, regarding the human condition, people go to sleep somewhere in the first third of the night. So therefore, say like Rabbi Eliezer. What are you saying up until midnight? As we continue to Midbeis, and if they hold a Rabbi Gamliel that he understands b'shach b'chaz, not when you go to sleep. It's as long as people are, quote, sleeping, which includes the whole entire night. So Rabbi Gamliel, let them say like Gamliel, that you can say Kriya Shema up until the break of dawn, meaning the opinion of midnight doesn't have an understanding, doesn't have an underpinning to understand their opinion. Where does midnight come in? You have to translate somewhere b'shach b'cha. There's no understanding of midnight for b'shach b'cha. Either it's when you're going to sleep or sleeping. We had an opinion that says the beginning of when people go to sleep, but midnight has no understanding. So therefore the Gemara is asking, who is he like? Rabbi Eliezer, say Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Gamliel, say all night. Says the Gemara, La'olam Rabbi Gamliel svirlu. Truth is, the sages hold like Rabbi Gamliel, which is you could say Kriya Shema all night up until the break of dawn. And this that they said you could only see up until midnight is that was to distance a person from sin that he shouldn't rely on, that he has extra time. Like we learned this idea in the Brisa. The sages made a boundary, a fence, for their opinions, meaning for halacha. And the reason for this is a person shouldn't come from the fields, he's working all day in the evening, and he's going to say, okay, look, I worked hard. Let me first go home. Let me eat a little bit. I'm starving. Let me drink a little bit. Let me just take a small nap. Then I'll say Krishma, and then I'll daven, and guess what happens? Sleep overcomes him. It comes out he slept all night. That a person shouldn't do. And this is actually halacha, that a person should not do this. Actually, in halacha, it's brought a half hour before Tzeis HaKachavim, a person should not be eating. Now, that's a little bit discussed exactly as we'll finish off this statement. Aval rather, adam b'amen asada ba'arv. What you do is, when you come home from the fields in the evening, nichnas lebeis hakneses, you go into the shul. Imraga likris kar, if you're used to reading from Chumash, read Chumash. V'imraga lishnei shayin, if you're used to learning Mishnayos, learn Mishnayos. V'kari krishma mispal, and you say krishma, then you daven, and then va'oichel pita mavarach, then you eat your bread, and then you make Beruchas Hamazon. That's the order that's supposed to be. Now, Taisa points out, from here it seems like that from the moment when it reaches time for krishma of the evening, a person's not supposed to eat a suda until he says krishma and davens ma'ariv, which actually two halachas come out from this Taisa, which is not a suda, but you could just taste something. Additionally, the place can say that if people remind you, if you have a reminder, then that's going to be a permissibility. But again, in general, one's not supposed to go ahead and eat and do all these things before krishma and ma'ariv. He's supposed to first say krishma and daven ma'ariv. Now, moreover, says the Gemara, whoever violates the words of the sages, chayiv misa. It's liable for a death penalty. Now, the Gemara quickly jumps on this and asks, this is very interesting. Why is it different everywhere else? When we talk about rabbinic law, we don't say you're liable for the death penalty. Why over here do you say that you're liable for the death penalty? So the Gemara has two approaches. If you want, you could say, first of all, there's this mishap, the challenge of sleep, which is that sleep overtakes the person. We know people that are driving at the wheel. Sleep is something that's very strong urge. And that's going to push a person to violate the words of the sages, so therefore they have to warn more. Therefore they gave, so to speak, a death penalty warning. So, so a person's not going to go ahead and engage in something that's going to make him sleep. If you want to give a different answer, is that it's actually, as the Mefarshim explained, not going on Krishma. It's actually going on the tefillah of Ma'ariv. If you see in the Brisa, it was discussing, don't eat and drink, rather go to shul and say Krishma and daven Ma'ariv, and whoever violates this is chayiv misa. The Mefarshim explained it's not going on the Krishma, it's actually going on the Chiv Tefillah. Why? So why in this Tefillah are you going to say for Ma'ariv that you Chayiv Misa? Why do you need to strengthen it so much to give a death penalty? It takes good from the opinion that's brought later on, that holds Tefillah's Arvis Rishus, that holds Ma'ariv is voluntary. It's not obligatory. And therefore you would think there's no obligation at all. So Kamash Malon L'Chay, but they wanted to tell you that it's an obligation there. To strengthen that opinion, they said that there's a Chiv Misa, not to think that we're just saying it's a nice, good idea. This is a real obligation, therefore they strengthen it with Chiv Misa. So what we spoke about, we said that Chum say, Abatel Chatzais, truthfully, they hold like Rabbi Gamliel that it's all night long. Why? Because they interpret the B'shach B'cha means as long as a person is sleeping. Why did they say Chatzais? That's Lahar Chagad Ma'aver. Again, the sages do that a lot. A lot of our halachas, all harchak is distancing a person that they don't violate biblical law. Now, interesting also, like we said, that whoever violates is chayiv misa. Chayiv misa, why? We don't usually say that. For two reasons, either because of ein neshina, because sleep overtaking you, so that's going to really put you in your place, or it takes good from the one that holds ma'ariv as rishus to tell you, it's not a rishus. This is an obligation, and therefore we're backing it up with what we call a chayiv misa. Now, again, what would seem tangentially, amamar, the Gemara says, parenthetically, you just said in the Brisa you quoted, which was supporting this idea about that we're concerned the person falling asleep, and therefore you got to go ahead and kairei kriyishma, the Brisa said. So instead of going home to eat something, go to shul, be kairei kriyishma of Ma'ariv first, and then be umispal, then go ahead and daven Ma'ariv. So the Gemara says, interestingly, the wording of the Brisa is misayeh Rabbi Yechanan. It supports Rabbi Yechanan that he holds that by Ma'ariv too, like our custom is, that you first say kriyishma and then you daven Ma'ariv. Why? Because you want to be soymech geula l'tefillah. You want to have the bracha of Gal Yisrael, and then only afterwards daven Ma'ariv. Not like Rabbi Shub and Levi that we're going to quote now, that he actually holds by Ma'ariv. You don't do the order that we do. He holds you daven Ma'ariv, and then you say Kriyishma, like the Gemara brings. The Amar Rabbi Yechanan said, "Ezeu ben oil mabah." Who is a person that is a son of the world to come? Which means either that he merits the world to come, or he lives it over here in this world. This is someone that makes it close, the bracha of Gal Yisrael, L'tfila shel arvis, to the Ma'ariv tefillah. Now, as Rashi points out, for sure that applies by Shachris, because the primary redemption from Egypt was in the morning, like the pasuk says in Bamidbar, Mimacharas haPesach yotze b'nei Yisrael. The next morning is when the Jews actually left Egypt. Now, where do we know this idea of smichas gula tefillah, that after Gal Yisrael you should be davening Ma'ariv? David HaMelech actually alludes to it in Sefer Tehillim, because in Tehillim Yotes, he says, Hashem tzuri v'goyali, Hashem is my rock and my redeemer. Right after that, in the next, it says, Yancha Hashem b'yoyim tzara. Hashem will answer you in the day of tzara. So you see, Geula, Goyali, is then followed right after with Hashem answering me, which is the idea of tefillah, which actually from this idea, some poskim say that you don't have to be semach gula tefillah on Shabbos, because Shabbos is not the day of tzara. But another source of smichas gula tefillah, the Yerushalmi brings, that someone that doesn't do smichas gula tefillah says, what you compare to that is a friend of the king. Comes knocking on the door of the king, and I think they have this on the Ura video, this one type of thing, that he come to the king, and the king comes out, and guess what? He already left. So the king also leaves. Rather, meaning if you're coming gula l'tefillah, you're recalling Hashem's love for us, and then you're not davening right after, the king's not coming to answer your request. Rather, what a person's supposed to do, a beloved of Hashem, what he does is he's meratza. He appeases Hashem with thanks and gratitude for leaving Egypt. Then Hashem gets close to the person, which in general, a person is always supposed to be giving gratitude to Hashem. It brings all that Hashpa'is Taivas, it brings all that goodness that Hashem wants. And then once Hashem comes and he hears you praising him, then a person could ask for what he wants. Therefore, that reasoning applies even on Shabbos. Therefore, there would be even an idea, Smichas Gula Tefillah, even on Shabbos. Now, that's the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Shloimy Levi, he disagrees. He says, no, Tefillah is be'emtza tiknum. The Tefillahs are between the two Kriya Shemas. In other words, there's the tefillahs that we have every single day, one in the morning, one at night. He holds that actually they're between the two Kriya Shemas, because actually Ma'ariv, the tefillah of Shemoneh Esrei, we say before Kriya Shema. So not like Rabbi Yochanan, not Kriya Shema then tefillah, but rather first tefillah then Kriya Shema. And therefore the Gemara says that the brayso before supports Rabbi Yochanan, where you see that first the brayso say Kriya Shema and then davening Ma'ariv. Now once we introduce this, the Gemara says, okay, what's the machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Shloimy Levi? Says the Gemara, Iba Yisei Makra, if you want, you could say based on a pasuk. Iba Yisei Mesvar, if you want, you could say it's based on logic. So the Gemara explains both interpretations. Iba Yisei Mesvar, if you want, you could say it's based on logic, because Rabbi Yochanan held, Geula me'urten namihaber. On some level, the redemption already happened on the previous night. Why? We find that already at nighttime, Paro was running in his pajamas. Jews, get out of here. They were already free already at the nighttime. The real redemption only happened up until the morning, because of, that's when they actually left. But since it already happened on the evening, so you have to be semach gula tefillah, there was the element of redemption already at nighttime. So at nighttime tefillah, you want to mention the redemption too. But Shloimy Levi, he held that no, kivin do lahava element tzafra, since ultimately the Jews only were redeemed, they only left in the morning. Lahava gula mal yasa, it wasn't considered a bona fide redemption already at the nighttime. So therefore, it's not so significant to go ahead and have to be soymich that geula to tefillah. That's one interpretation. If you want, you could say it's based on the pasuk. And b'shnei mikra echad darshu, in classic Talmudic style, they're actually both expounding the same pasuk, and they come out with opposite opinions. Why? Because the pasuk says in Devarim, like we quoted many times, Kriya Shema is b'shach b'chav kumecha, when you lay down and when you get up. So Rabbi Yochanan Savi, he says, okay, so makesh shchiva lekima. So the pasuk is equating. Whenever you have two words near each other, there's like a hekesh type of style. We're comparing going to sleep to when you get up. Now, makima, just like when you get up in the morning, Kriya Shema va'achakach tefillah. First you say Kriya Shema with its brachas, and then you daven, because again, by shachris, everyone agrees they have to be semach gula tefillah, because that's where the primary idea comes from, because that's when the redemption happened. So av shchivanami, so to when you're laying down, it's the same thing. Kriya Shema va'achakach tefillah. First you say Kriya Shema, and then you daven. So therefore that's Rabbi Yochanan's source. Rabbi Shloimy Levi Sava, he says the same idea, but opposite. He says, makesh shchiva lekima. Yeah, I agree. Compare going to sleep to waking up, but a different comparison. Makima Kriya Shema samach lemitasai. Just like when you get up, when you say Kriya Shema, what's closer to your bed, meaning when you were just in your bed? Kriya Shema or Shemoneh Esrei? Kriya Shema, because you're saying Kriya Shema first. So Kriya Shema is, quote, samach lemitasai. So when you're going to lay down, it's the same thing. Kriya Shema samach lemitasai. The Kriya Shema should be the closest thing to your bed, which means to say that means you daven Shemoneh Esrei first, and then you're saying Kriya Shema. So therefore, again, that's what we wrote down over here. We said that the machlekes by Ma'ariv regarding Kriya Shema or Shemoneh Esrei, which one is first? Either it's based on logic. Do you say that the redemption at nighttime requires smicha to tefillah? Because it wasn't really the real gula, was only in the morning. So Rabbi Shloimy Levi says, okay, you don't have to be semach gula tefillah at nighttime. But Rabbi Yochanan says, ultimately, there was somewhat of redemption at nighttime. They were free to go. They just didn't leave. Therefore, there's the idea of being semach gula tefillah at nighttime too. Or it's based on the pasuk. It says, v'shach b'chav kamecha. We're comparing when they went down to sleep to when they got up in the morning. Do you say that's the idea of, okay, samach l'mitasai? What's closest to your bed is Kriya Shema in the morning, so that's the closest to your bed at nighttime too, which is the opinion of Rabbi Shloimy Levi, that Kriya Shema is last. Or like Rabbi Yochanan says, no, just like in the morning you say Kriya Shema and then Shemoneh Esrei, so to at nighttime you can say Kriya Shema and then Shemoneh Esrei, which again, like we say, was supported from the previous brayso that says, instead of going home to eat, go to shul and be Kriya Shema and then go ahead and daven. In the pasuk it says, v'shach b'chav kamecha. Yeah, so the pasuk is comparing uv'shach b'chav kamecha. The same halacha that applies when you get up in the morning should be when you go to lay down at night. And then the question is, what's that point? What is the same thing of kamecha? There's two things that it has. One idea of kamecha has is that the Kriya Shema closest to the bed. But at the same time, in the morning is also that you first say Kriya Shema and you daven Shemoneh Esrei. So at nighttime, depending on those two reasonings, you might have two opposite things. At nighttime, then also maybe we say Kriya Shema and then daven, just like in the morning. Or no, daven and then have Kriya Shema, so that Kriya Shema could be the closest thing to the bed. So both are true. Question is, what exactly you're going to compare it to. Now the Gemara asks on Rabbi Yochanan. Masav Mar Bered Ravina. Mar, the son of Ravina, asked from the following Mishnah of Daf Yomi. Again, Rabbi Yochanan is the one who holds that at nighttime you have to be semach gula tefillah. You have to have Gal Yisrael and then go into Shemoneh Esrei. Not the opposite way like Rabbi Shloimy Levi. The problem is, says Mar Bered Ravina, there's a Mishnah on Daf Yomi that says, when it talks about Beruchas Kriya Shema, it says Be'erev, in the evening, meaning by Ma'ariv time, Mevarach shtaim lefaneh, v'shtaim lacharah. We know at nighttime when you're davening Ma'ariv, we say Hamar Varavim, we say Havas Oilam. Those are two brachas before Shema. They have two brachas after Shema. What are the two brachas after Shema? We have Gal Yisrael and Hashkivenu. Says the Gemara, V'yamid B'yilismach, if you hold like Rabbi Yochanan, you have to be Semach Gula Tefillah at Ma'ariv too. Halakha Samach Gula Tefillah. You're not putting Gal Yisrael right before you daven Shemoneh Esrei. The B'yilimim Hashkivenu. You're saying a totally different bracha, that of laying down to sleep. Hashem protect us when we go down to sleep. So you're interrupting. You're not being Semach Gula Tefillah. You see not like Rabbi Yochanan. Because you're not being Semach Gula Tefillah. So Amr, they said no. Even the Tikinu Rabban Hashkivenu, since the rabbis instituted this bracha of Hashkivenu, it's Kugula Arichta Damya. It's like what's called a long redemption. It means it's a continuation of the theme of Gal Yisrael. It's not that you're just interrupting. You have to go from Gal Yisrael into Shemoneh Esrei. Hashkivenu was an addendum to the idea of Gal Yisrael. It was added on as a protection, which is ideas of redemption, and therefore it's not considered a hefsek, and so it's Kugula Arichta. So you are being Semach Gula Tefillah at Ma'ariv too. And the Gemara proves this answer. If you don't say this, that like we could say this quote unquote ad hoc Kugula Arichta Damya, then Shachar Heichi Matzi Samach. Then in the morning, where everyone agrees you have to have Gula right before Tefillah, Gal Yisrael and then Tefillah, how in the morning by Shachar are you being Semach Gula Tefillah? Because Baham Rabbi Yochanan is a different teaching of Rabbi Yochanan. He says, like our custom is, before you say Shemoneh Esrei, you say this verse in Tehillim. Hashem safasai teftach. Hashem, open up my lips. Well, at the end of Shemoneh Esrei, you say the pasuk in Tehillim, Yiyu l'ratzin imrei fi. It should be, find favor, the words of my mouth. Now, if before you're saying Shemoneh Esrei, you're saying Hashem safasai teftach, you're being mafsik. You're not going straight from Gal Yisrael, which is what the last thing we say before Shemoneh Esrei, and going into bracha of avos. You're interrupting with a pasuk. Ella rather says the Gemara, like we're saying, Hasam over there, even the Kin Rabbanu Lameim Hashem Safasei Tiftach, since the rabbis instituted to say this pasuk, Ketfila Arichta Dami, it's like a long tefillah. It's really opening up, like it's brought in Sefarim. The biggest tefillah you could do is to tell Hashem that you can't even daven. You need Him to even be able to daven to Him. Hashem Safasei Tiftach is like part of tefillah itself. It's like a long tefillah, meaning an extension of tefillah. Hachanami Hirosa is the same answer we're giving. Since the rabbis instituted to say Hashkivenu, Kigula Arichta Dami, it's like it's like an extended bracha of Gal Yisrael. And Taisus brings actually, we don't even have just Hashkivenu, we have actually the bracha of Yirei Neinu, and we have other psukim after Hashkivenu. Taisus says the same thing. It's like an extension of the ideas mentioned in the redemption, which actually over there mentions Hashem's name 18 times, which correlate to the 18 brachas in Shemoneh Esrei. And Taisus says the halacha is as it is, like Rabbi Yochanan, which we have a brayso supporting him, as we mentioned previously in the Gemara, which is why we brought this in, and that's how the halachas gedolos paskins and rules. And therefore, Taisa says one has to be careful not to talk between the Geula, the bracha of Gal Yisrael, and all the remaining brachas that are Gula Richta Amayr, and from Shemona Esrei, although we know that announcements are allowed to be made that are Negeya, that are applicable to Shemona Esrei, people call out, Yalav Yalav Yalav, that's permitted, but in general, one should not speak out between the bracha of Gal Yisrael, which includes Hashkivenu Yeranenu, by nighttime, because we do pass and we rule, you should be Semach Gula L'Tfila. So again, that's what we mentioned over here, that yes, Smuchas Gula L'Tfila is a concept that everyone agrees to in Shachars. The question is, by Ma'ariv time, according to Rabbi Yechon, like we rule, like how do we say Hashkivenu? Because it's Kegula Richt, it's like an extended Gula. As we know, by Hashem Sefasei Tiftach, that's what's called like a Tefillah Arichta. Now the Gemara continues and talks about the rewards of certain types of prayers. Amr B'Laza Amr B'Vina. It says, Kalo Emer Tehila LeDavid B'chol Yom Shalish Pam, whoever says what we commonly call Ashrei, but it's actually not Ashrei. The Mizmer actually starts Tehila LeDavid. So whoever says what we call Ashrei 3 times a day, which that 3 also correlates to the 3 tefillas every single day, Muftach le'shuhu b'nei Mabah, he's guaranteed to be a person of the world to come. Now, my time, what's the reason? Why is Ashrei such a big thing? This is because it uses every letter in the Aleph Beis, so that's pretty noble. Like, imagine going through the whole alphabet and telling your wife how great she is by using every letter in the alphabet. You're basically saying, like, wow, every letter in the world says how great you are. So therefore, Ashrei is so great because we're using every letter in the Aleph Beis. So if that's the case, name and then say Perikuf Yates and Tehillim. Ashrei Tamimei Derech, the Asi B'Tamana Appen. That says every letter 8 times. So if the Aleph Beis is why we're saying it, say Perikuf Yates. Oh, Ella rather says the Gemara, no, Mishum the Isbei. The reason is because there's a famous pasuk, Pesach es Yedecha. Hashem, you open up your hand, you satiate the desire of every single person. That's why we say Ashrei. If that's the case, says the Gemara, Nema Hal Hagadol. You should say what's called the Great Howl, which is a Perikuf Lamed Vav and Tehillim. The Chesiv Beit says over there, Neisen Lechem L'chal Basar. He gives bread to every single flesh. That's a greater accolade than actually the pasuk of Pesach es Yedecha. So then, if that's the reason, say Kuf Lamed Vav. So says the Gemara, El Mishum de Isbei Tarti. Now the reason why we say Ashrei and we say it's so great that you have Olam Haba is because that's both. It's written in the Aleph Beis and it also has the praise of Hashem prepares the food for every living creature on this planet. Now, Amr B'Yechanan, he comments regarding Ashrei, he says, Memnei ma loy nemer nun ba'ashrei. Hey, it doesn't have every letter in the Aleph Beis. It's missing the nun. There's no nun in Ashrei. Why? It says, Memnei sheyesh b'ma palasin shel soyni Yisrael. And that's euphemistically. When the Jewish, we don't want to curse the Jewish people, so we call it the enemies of the Jewish people, but it actually refers to the Jewish people because it references, the nun references the downfall of the Jewish people. Where do we find that? It's a pasuk in Amos. It says, Nafla, the Jewish people will fall, loy taisav kum, they're not going to get up anymore. Besulas Yisrael, the virgin means to say the youthful Jewish people. So since the word nun refers to the nefila, we don't want to mention that in Ashrei. Now, actually interesting, the Gemara says, B'marava mitarti lahachi. In the West, in Eretz Yisrael, they actually translated that pasuk that actually is not a curse. They read it a different syntax with a comma. Nafla, the Jewish people will fall, but v'leisaisiv, and these 2 words are added on to the pasuk, what's not going to be added on? Not linpol oid, they're not going to fall anymore. And the word kum is not from v'leisaisiv kum, it's from the next words. Kum b'sulas Yisrael. Get up, the young women of the Jewish people. So they actually translated the nun as a good thing. But Amr Rav Nachman Yitzchak, they say, even though in Ashrei we skipped out the nun because it references the falling of the Jewish people, and David HaMelech did not want to allude to that downfall of the Jewish people, even so he went back and alluded to the Hashem helping the Jewish people after they fall. Because Chazar David v'samchen beruach HaKodesh, David HaMelech went and then supported the downfall of the Jewish people with his divine spirit, Shalem, like the next pasuk says, instead of the nun, afterwards is the samach, Soymech Hashem l'chol hanoifim. Hashem supports all those who fall. So he's alluding to it, but not saying it, but saying it in a way that Hashem will help those who fell. Now, another teaching from the same Amoira, Amr B'Laza Bar Avina, which again seems unrelated, but it's from the same Amoira. Gadol Mashanema b'Michal, greater is what it says regarding the Malach Michal, who is always known as the Malach of Chesed on the right side. Yisib Mashanema b'Gabriel, more than it says regarding the Malach Gabriel, who he's from the side of the left of that of Din. What's created by Michal? Dili b'Michal, except by Michal, it says a pasuk in Yeshaya, Vayoif Elai Echem Ben Asrafim. It says that one of the burning angels flew to me. And it says it just in the singular, which means in one jump, he didn't have to stop in between. In one jump, he jumped to me. Now, Vilu Gabe Gavriel, by the Malach Gavriel, it says the pasuk in Daniel, V'ish Gavriel, and the man Gavriel, Asher Re'isi Bechazem, that I saw in the vision, Betchila Mu'ef B'yoef B'goymer. In the beginning, he jumped to me, which it says the word jump 2 times, which it took him 2 jumps to get to me. So you see, Michal took 1 jump, and Gavriel took 2 jumps. So you see, it's greater what it says by Michal than by Gavriel. Now the Gemara asks, "My mashma d'hai echad." How do you know regarding the first pasuk that we brought that it says that one of the serafim jumped to me? That's Michal. Well, how do we know that echad refers to the Malach Michal? So Rabbi Yechon, he says because asya echad echad we have exeris shav with the word 1. Ksiv hachad says in the pasuk that we brought before v'yoyf alai echad min asrafim that one of the serafim jumped to me. So it says the word echad. Ksiv hasan is the pasuk in Daniel. It says v'hine Michal, and behold Michal echad hasarim harishainim, one of the earlier princes. Bala Azraini came to support me. So you see over there by Michal it says Echad. So here when it says Echad, it also refers to Michal, and we see that Michal was able to do it in 1 jump. Now, Tanu will learn the Brayso says actually Michal ba'achas. Michal could go in 1 jump. Gavriel b'shtayim, the Malach Gavriel could do it in 2 jumps. Eliyahu ba'arba Eliyahu could go in 4 jumps. U'malach hamavis b'shmayna, the angel of death, does it in 8 jumps. But b'shas hamagefa ba'achas, at a time of a plague, he actually does it in 1 jump, where then it's a time when he could do things more swiftly than usually in the time of plague, so he could do it in 1 jump. Now we conclude this daf with talking about Kriya Shema Lamita. We were talking about until now the regular Kriya Shema, which is the biblical obligation of B'shach B'chav Kumecha. Then there's a different halacha known as Kriya Shema Lamita. So Amr B'Shuban Levi says, Afa Peshakar Odom Kriya Shema B'Beis HaKnesses. Even someone already said Kriya Shema at nighttime in shul. Mitzvah l'kreisei al mitasei, there's a mitzvah to say it by his bed, which according to the primary halacha, that's the first parasha in Shema, but there are those who say to say all 3 parashas of Shema. Now, Amr Bisi says, Micro, what's a pasuk that tells us this halacha of Kriya Shema Lamita? It's a pasuk in Tehillim. Rigzu, tremble, v'al techatu, and don't sin. Imru v'lvavchem, say it on your heart. Now, what does that mean? It means Imru, say what's written bilvavchem. Kriya Shema, it says to say it al levavecha, the pasuk in the Bible says. So Imru v'lvavchem is saying, say what it says al levavecha, which is Kriya Shema. Al mishkavchem, on your bed, which it says ubeshach b'cha, when you're laying down, another allusion to Kriya Shema. V'day musela, and then be silent forever. What does it mean be silent? Be silent when you sleep after that, which that sleep is like a 60th of death. So you see, when you're going to sleep, say Kriya Shema al mishkavchem, and then be silent. So we see the idea of Kriya Shema Lamita. Now, Amr of Nachman says, if you continue to have Hey and Aleph, im tamachacham who, if he's a Talmudic scholar who is used to being versed in his learning, in old times he's reviewing his learning, so then actually that's going to be sufficient, which there are those who say that that's not around anymore. Then ain't it tzarech, then that person doesn't have to say Kriya Shema Lamita. And Abaya, he says, however, Abaya says, Af tamachacham, even Talmudic scholar, you have to say at least 1 verse of mercy, like it says in pasuk in Tehillim. B'yadcha af kedruchi, which we do say this. We say this similar idea in the end of Beruchas Kriya Shema of nighttime. B'yadcha, in your hand, af kedruchi, I entrust my spirit. Padisa isi Hashem, you redeem me, Hashem, God, kel emes, the true God. So with that we conclude Daf Dalet. So just to do a quick view, we said that we had the original question that we asked in the previous Daf, what David Melech knew in Chatzais was, and Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know. So we had one answer from the previous daf that no, you're right, David Melech didn't know also, but he had a harp that woke him up. In today's daf, we had 2 more answers. No, David Melech knew, Moshe Rabbeinu knew. So why did David need a harp then? It wasn't to tell him when midnight is. He knows. It was just to wake him up. So why did Moshe Rabbeinu say Kechatzais? You know why Moshe Rabbeinu said Chatzais? He was afraid of the Egyptians. He knew. He was afraid they're going to make a mistake and say, hey, Moshe is a liar. Third interpretation was Kechatzais didn't mean like around midnight. It meant like midnight. Just like tonight, a night before Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's exactly midnight. That same thing, tomorrow night, the same thing is going to be when the Egyptians are going to be killed. Then the Gemara mentioned David, a parak in Tehillim. David HaMelech said, Chasarani, I'm a pious person. I'm not like all the other kings. 2 interpretations. What does it mean he's not like all the other kings? Either because all the other kings, they sleep late and he gets up at midnight, or all the other kings, they're celebrating all their honor and the glory, and guess what? He's busy with blood, all these different fetuses with women to try to purify them for their husbands. And another thing that he was pious is that he wasn't embarrassed. He went to his Rebbe, says, did I do the right thing? And that's why his Rebbe, even though his name wasn't Mifi Baishas, he was actually called Ish Baishas, he was called Mifi Baishas because his from my mouth comes that embarrassment for David HaMelech. And that merit, because he was able to be vulnerable and ask and not be embarrassed, he merited to a son called Kilav. Now his name wasn't Kilav, his name was Daniel. Why was it called Kilav? Because the word kill is from the word machlim, to embarrass, of the father of all rulings, which was his Rebbe, Mifi Baishas. He married a son that bested his own Rebbe. And then we said, if he's a chassid, so why was he afraid? Luli Hamanti, we have dots on the lule. He wasn't so positive he's going to get to the next world. What do you mean? You're a pious person. Yes, he was concerned. He was afraid that sin could cause him to lose that status. As we find, Yaakov was afraid. And as we find in Days of Ezra, they actually lost that. They were supposed to come in the second base of Mikdash Biyad Rama, and they didn't because of sin. Then we spoke about, going back to Halacha, the Mishnah, that the Chacham say that Kriya Shema Av is up until midnight. We says, wait a second, midnight? Where does that fit into B'shach B'cha? It's either when you're going to sleep or when you're sleeping. That's either the first quarter of the night, or it's up until the morning. So he said that no, the sages hold a Gemulil that's all night long. Because the B'shach B'cha means as long as they're sleeping. But they said midnight, laharchak ad min avera. As we brought, because we're concerned that, okay, I got time. I go home, eat a little bit, drink a little bit, take a little nap, and before you know it, you slept all night. No, you got up until midnight, you have a deadline, you'll make sure to go ahead and fulfill it before you miss it. Which the price can bring down. That's why b'diavad you could say it all night, even if the halach is like the chacham, because they really essentially hold like a Gamliel. And they said, whoever violates this is liable for death. Death? We never usually say death. Yes, because sleep is something that's overpowering to a person. As we know, many tragedies can happen. People are driving. So therefore they have to say you're liable for death. Or it's actually referring to the tefillah of Ma'ariv, because there are those who say that Ma'ariv is voluntary. So to preclude from that opinion, they say, no, it's an obligation. There's a death related to this. Then we spoke about a machlekes regarding at Ma'ariv, at the tefillah of Ma'ariv. What comes first, Kriya Shema or Shemoneh Esrei? Which either their dispute is based on logic, because do you say Gula was only in the morning, so only then you have to be Semach Gula Tefillah, or even at nighttime, Rabbi Yochanan holds, because ultimately there was somewhat of a redemption already at nighttime. Or their machlekes is based on the Hekesh of the B'shach B'chav Kumecha. We compare when you go to sleep, when you get up in the morning, regarding those Kriya Shemas. Now, do you say that just like Kriya Shema in the morning, the Kriya Shema is closer to the bed, so to at night and the Kriya Shema should be closer to the bed, therefore you daven Ma'ariv first and then you say Kriya Shema? Or no? Just like in the morning you say Kriya Shema and then you say Shemoneh Esrei, so to at nighttime, which is how we paskin, you say Kriya Shema and then you say Shemoneh Esrei. Then we brought that this idea of Smichas Gula Tefillah is an important idea. Again, it's when you're getting close to Hashem, which is Gula, then you daven. And we wondered, but Hashkivenu, doesn't that get in the way between Gol Yisrael and the Tefillah of Ma'ariv? We said, no, it's Gula Richta. It's like an extended Gula. Just like everyone agrees, Hashem Savasik Tiftach is like a Tefillah Richta. It's an extended Tefillah that we open up Tefillah beforehand. We spoke about what's the great big thing of Ashrei, which is because it has Aleph base and it has the famous pasuk, which a person has to have Kavanah by, because it has both ideas, all the letters are Aleph base, and Hashem gives us whatever we need. And then we spoke about that the Malachim, many different jumps that they have to where they have to get to. We spoke about Kriya Shema Lamita, that there's such an obligation from the pasuk, Rigzavat Tachto, but a Tamachachim doesn't need. But even so, Abaye says he should still say one pasuk of Rachmim, of mercy to Hashem, before he deposits his soul with Hashem when he goes to sleep at night.